We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday. Nick Barris here. We're talking gun rights and the Second Amendment and the like, taking your phone calls with Professor John File. Good morning to you, Professor. Thank you for joining us. We've got more phone calls. A lot of people have opinions on this, and we'll see where people go or what their questions might be. We have Tom next. Tom, good morning. Hi, Tom. We've got a couple in a row.
Hello?
Hi, Tom. Go ahead, buddy.
Oh, can you hear me? Good. Well, I think we ought to have an Emmett Till moment. With the parents' permission, I think they need to show photographs of what the AR-15 does to these little children. Thank you.
Thank you for your call. It's interesting, Professor. I know that's a little outside your historical realm, but that was actually a story that made news yesterday when one of the trauma surgeons at one of the facilities that was treating these children suggested this, saying as graphic and horrible as it would be, with parental permission, they think it's important that people understand the trauma that occurs when a round from a high-powered rifle like this hit someone, especially a child. I can't say that here at News Channel 5, if those pictures were released, that we would ever show them uncensored to some degree. But what do you think? I mean, that goes back to Ann's comment before, also kind of addressing the issue of we've become desensitized. Certainly seeing something awful like that sure would grab some attention.
Well, the example that he gave is a great one. You know, Emmett Till. Now, this wasn't done by the government.
Right.
But, you know, Emmett Till, he was the victim of a lynching in Mississippi, if I remember. And when they had the funeral, it was his mother, if I recall, who said, we're going to have an open coffin. Because she wanted, you know, it's one thing to talk about violence in the abstract, and it's another to see it face to face. Again, I think my imagination is sufficient to, you know, probably figure out that it would really be a horrible thing to have to watch. I'm not sure. I'd be sort of like you. I would be reluctant if I were a newscaster to show it. But, you know, it's easy to talk in abstraction about rights and responsibilities. It's something else, you know, when you lose a child or a friend loses a child or, you know, a woman is, you know, even who has an order of protection is still hunted down by someone who's out to kill her.
Right. I'll say, and again, I think I echo exactly what you just said, and that's my thinking as well. But, boy, we've seen historically, though, images that come about, and there's something that can't be captured with the written word or a verbal description. And what I'm talking about are some of the images we've seen of famine victims, you know, in the Sudan and Africa. We've seen images of, you know, casualties of war, some of those very high-profile ones that we've all seen that are just extraordinarily disturbing. But when those images finally come out by the brave journalists that go there and show them, when they came out, that's what got the world's attention sometimes. This is a little bit different type of situation, but sometimes that's what it takes to jar someone, even though I can't imagine anything making me feel worse about seeing those children get gunned down.
You know, I'm probably dating myself, but this happened during the Vietnam War when you had the My Lai massacre. And also you remember when, you know, one of the authorities in Vietnam shot on camera a suspected Viet Cong, and they did have just tremendous influence on popular opinion. And, you know, one of the reasons we're talking about this so much right now and is, you know, not only did we have this Uvalde, but, you know, within a week, we also had this, you know, racist attack in Buffalo. And, you know, in a sense, you're just as innocent if you're out, you know, shopping as if you're in school trying to learn.
Let's take another phone call or two. We've got another Tom. Tom, good morning. Hi, Tom.
Hey, good morning, Nick. How are you doing?
Good. What's on your mind, my friend?
Well, I'm sitting here listening to the conversation and everything about the guns. I'm an advocate, gun owner, and hunter. I love to hunt, and I like to shoot the guns as target practicing. But, you know, I feel sorry for these young kids that don't have the education to know what a gun's all about. I blame a lot of that on the parents for not teaching them. And then again, if we do have gun control and they do take all of our guns away from us, we're going to be a defenseless country, and then we're going to be like Ukraine. So, I don't know what to say, Nick. It's very bad that people have to get out here and like the other guy said, they're blaming us for having guns, the people that don't get out here and kill people, and these young kids think guns is all they are. I got a neighbor across the road threatening to shoot me. He's a little punk kid. What do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Do you shoot him? You can't get the law to do nothing with him. And so you just have to ignore him until he makes his mistakes.
I hear you, and I totally understand the argument for the weapons being available for people, especially for personal protection and the like. I'm curious, though, Professor, you talked about earlier the Second Amendment and the forefathers writing it with the idea of a militia and the concerns of defending against interlopers at the time and the weapons that were available. I do hear the argument today, and I laugh at this one, where people say, well, shoot, we need our guns in case the government comes after us. Now, God forbid that happens, but trust me, I don't care what kind of gun you have. If they send a Harrier to your house, you're done, over, finished. How realistic is it to say, well, we need to have our guns to protect ourselves against the government?
Well, I think it's more realistic to say there's a role for guns in protecting oneself and one's house.
Sure.
Especially, that's if there's ever a right that one would have, your right to self-defense. But yeah, the Ukrainians right now are, to the extent that they're able to fight back the Russians, they're not doing it with probably even maybe AR-15s. I don't know, but they're certainly not for the most part doing it with pistols. That's why they're asking for long-range weapons and howitzers and the like. But one hopes that there are other mechanisms in place that would keep our government from becoming the kind of government that one would have in Russia or some other totalitarian nations. But yes, there's certainly a role for individuals in their own self-defense.
Yeah, and I sympathize with that.
For hunting.
And for hunting, and for folks who are collectors or targeting. All those folks I sympathize with, and I want them, anyone who's into those types of things to have the ability to have the right to have them. And I just don't see that changing in this country one way or the other. But maybe some type of regulations on whether an 18-year-old can get an AR-15, maybe that's something people will consider. We'll see in the legislature. Let's go to Maggie next. Maggie, good morning. Hi, Maggie.
Hi, how are you?
Good. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm going to preface my comment with the fact that I am an Army veteran. I served 8 years. I was a combat medic. I am qualified, or was qualified, with an M16. In the military, you have to be requalified every year. The guns are locked up in an armory. We do not walk around with our M16s on us. I wish people would remember that they had to use DNA testing to figure out who some of these children were because of the destruction done to them by this assault weapon. No one wants to take your hunting weapons away from you. No one wants to take your handguns away from you. We do need a ban on assault weapons. If you want to shoot an assault weapon, volunteer for the military. Get the training. It's regulated even in the military. Assault weapons are made for one purpose and one purpose only: to kill as many people as you can, as fast as you can. That's it. They are weapons of war. We do not need them. They're not used for target practice unless you're in the military. A well-regulated militia is the National Guard. Join the Guard. There are so many things that you can do. Responsible gun owners lock their weapons up. I grew up in a house. My dad was a retired lieutenant colonel. with guns. We were taught gun safety. The guns were locked up. They were only hunting guns. So I've got to have my semi-automatic weapon is a bunch of crap, excuse my language.
Yes,
This
listen,
is ridiculous.
Maggie, I thank you so much for your call, and with your background, obviously you're familiar with these types of weapons. Look, I call things as I see them. I'm not anti-gun by any means, but I mean, you listen to that phone call, how does that not square and just make sense? I mean, it just does. That to me is just like, it just makes sense to me. No, you know, I mean, she's on point, and yeah, doesn't it? I mean, that should be the argument.
You know, let me thank her and her father for their service. Well, you know, one of the stories that touched me the most, that, you know, everybody has sort of a different take on it, but when I heard about a girl, you know, third or fourth grader, covering herself with the blood of her fellow students so that he would think that she was, you know, was dead, and, you know, and then pretending to be dead, you know, that's just, I don't know, almost an abomination. I mean, surely we can get beyond that place.
We need to take a break, Mary Elena? Let's do that. Professor, we'll be back with more calls. Wilma and others, if you're on the horn, we'd love to hear from you. Maggie, thank you again for your phone call. We'll take more calls in our conversation in our final segment right after this.